All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo sports talk and more. I am Patrick Moran. Thank you very much, as always, for locking in today. Whether you're watching this on video, whether you're listening on the audio side, appreciate you all. Today is Tuesday. Well, when this drops on the audio side, anyway, it is Tuesday. I'm joined by a recurring guest, a good friend of mine, and it has been a while, man. Most of the summer, actually. Joe Yerdon, what's going on, buddy? How you doing?
I'm doing good, dude. It's been a hot minute, man. A whole summer without hockey stuff to talk about, and then
Yeah.
NFL season kicks in. There's no need to talk to me for that. So it's
Nah.
although I am going to be working for the Miami Herald this Sunday. So
Are you really?
they need somebody to write a sidebar for them, and I'm part of the job squad, man. Pin me, pay me, and I'm in. So I'll actually be in the house on Sunday for that one. Although
Wow.
I better study up on the Dolphins, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they score a lot of points. There's your
That's what I understand.
that's your study up right there. That's cool though, man. And yeah, it has been I looked it up, June 11th. So yeah, it's been
Wow.
pretty much the duration of the summer, which technically we're in
We
fall
didn't
now.
even hook up after the draft. Damn.
No. Well, maybe I did.
That's not it.
Now
That's
that
not
I
even
think
on you.
about it.
That's just like a craziness thing, you know?
No, you know what? Then I'm wrong because I know we talked after the draft. I remember. So it was after the draft, but it hasn't been since the draft. Still been a while though, man.
Oh yeah.
How was your summer?
It was good. It was good, man. Yeah, things are, it was quiet, which is nice. Got to see family, got to get away for a little bit, got to check out the Finger Lakes for a weekend. So that was kind of hadn't been out there in a while. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, it's not like the extravagant summer vacations. Some of the Sabres players have been talking to have had where they're like, I went to Europe, I went and did this. Dahlin went to the Wimbledon final, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's nice.
Yeah.
I'm like, I went to Geneva, Switzerland, no, New York. It's it's a little different, but yeah,
Sure.
no, it's cool, man.
Yeah, that is it's cool you got to do some traveling. I didn't do shit this summer, man. I really didn't. Been working a lot. Like I said, this podcast is now every day during the week. So Monday through Friday, that's a grind. Not going to complain though, because it is for the most part anyway, a lot of fun, and hockey season is now upon us, which is really cool. We're going to spend some time in just a couple of minutes. I got what I think anyway are the biggest Sabres training camp questions that need to be answered. So I'll run some of those by you. We'll talk some football, not just Buffalo Bills, but also your Detroit Lions. You've been a longtime fan of them. For people, I say this every time Joe is on. Joe is a Bills watcher, not a Bills fan. He's actually, a lifelong Detroit Lions fan, and they're good and they're a fun team to watch. So we'll spend some time talking about them as well. Got a couple articles that you put out recently I want to hit on. Before that, though, so you got to tell me a little bit briefly, at least anyway. I don't want to get into like a deep dive on the subject, but there's an app where the skies are blue, man, called Blue Sky, and everybody who's on Twitter knows that shit's going nuts there.
Yeah,
you've been on this Blue Sky for a while now because I went on last week just to create an account. I'm like in that just in case the glass, break emergency or whatever, just in case emergency break glass. I'm in that mode right now, so got my Blue Sky set up. Saw you on there. It seems a lot like Twitter, but it's not Twitter.
Yeah, it is and it isn't. Like it was started up by Jack Dorsey, the guy who started Twitter. And as we know, no, same guy. Might explain why it's really similar. It's very similar. There's it's a lot like how Twitter was at the very, very, very beginning of time, back in like 08, 09 when that was just starting up, and very simple. There's no DMs, there's no GIFs. There's just, if you put a picture up there, they basically claim rights to it, which is really kind of funny. But so try not to put your own personal photos up there. Also gonna be like, hey, that's ours, and you're gonna be like, no, it's mine. They're like, well, you put it here, buddy. That's on you.
Oh, wow.
Lots of places have that snuck into their TOS. So like, be careful of that one. But like if you ever tried to shut down Facebook and try to get your pictures off of there, good luck, buddy. Have fun. But it's it's good. They're working through bugs. It's still kind of in like the beta stage. Like it's not wide open. Not everybody can sign up. You still need to get like an invite code from somebody who's already there. So
yeah, I got
there
one.
is that side of it. So it's a little, it's a little annoying, but like, I don't know, man, the more I keep swatting out ads and the more, the big doofus keeps, shooting his mouth off over at Twitter. It's like, man, clock's ticking, dude. Like time's coming, but it's pretty similar. We're still working out bugs and trying to get a feel for what the community is going to be over there. And right now, it's don't get me wrong. Blue Sky's a lot. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's always some kind of drama going on. And I'm kind of like, what the hell do I walk into here? Like, this is kind of stupid.
It sounds just like Twitter. Sounds just like Facebook, though. I
mean,
literally
every social media operation has the same nonsense going on with it. But I like it. It's a little bit quieter. I like quiet. I'm getting older now, Pat. So quiet is well sought after. But yeah, lots of the nonsense hasn't carried over there yet. I'm sure once it opens up wide, that will change dramatically. But hopefully it'll get to that stage, because right now Twitter's a bad place to be, man. It's bad.
I'm starting to integrate little by little anyway, some of this Blue Sky. Just time is such a factor, and doing this show every day. And I don't have a producer, I don't have a team that puts stuff together. Doing the show is fun. Recording with you is fun. Even editing is fun. I don't mind any of that stuff. But a lot of the promotional stuff, having to go in videos and cut out clips and then post them. And now I'm doing it on Instagram. I got a TikTok account, Facebook, Twitter. Now I'm integrating Blue Sky. Look, I agree with you with Twitter, and I don't want to go on this long rant because there's a lot of interesting sports stuff that I want to get to today. But I could tell it's Miami week already. We're taping this. This is dropping Tuesday. It's Monday around dinner time, and I'm already annoyed for the week with Twitter. All I did shortly before we started taping, all I said, because there's a Miami Dolphins love fest going on right now with the media and then Twitter, and I get it. When you drop 70 points on, I don't give a shit who the other team is. Right. When you drop 70 points on somebody, you're going to get your flowers. You're going to get your respect, and it's deserved. All I did was tweet out something along the lines of, you know what? This is important enough that I actually want to make sure. I don't want to paraphrase. I actually want to say
we need the direct quote, Pat. Do it.
I actually want to say what I said. I seriously get it. Miami's offense has been straight fire so far. They deserve respect, but let's not give them too much respect. It's week 4. Meanwhile, other than a 10,000-degree game with 10,000 injuries last year, Josh Allen has dominated Miami's defense. Feel good. Instantly, Miami fans jump on me, which you would expect. And then now the Bills fans, or at least some Bills fans, homerism. I'm being a homer because I'm saying that, Josh Allen has played great over his career against Miami. And also, it is week 4. I watch all the games, Joe. I watched Miami every snap this season, okay? They should have lost to the Chargers. They could have. See, look at the hot takes. It's been a while. The hot take alarm.
The fire department's even getting on you now, Pat.
At the Yerdon house. But no, seriously, they should have lost to the Chargers in week 1. They could have easily lost to New England in week 2 if Mac Jones didn't suck. And then they smacked the shit out of Denver. Great game. No question about it. Dude, it's the NFL, man. We just watched Baltimore lose at home to Indy. We just watched Jacksonville, was supposed to be far and away the best team in the AFC South, get smacked at home by the Houston Texans. We just watched Dallas lose to Arizona. So I don't want to hear the shit that about any team. All I was saying is I'm not ready to anoint Miami, and I'm not being a homer. Look, Joe, you know me. There's a lot of shit that people can say about me. I don't think being a Bills homer is one of them, though. I mean, come on. So anyway, I could just see it already. Miami fans talking shit. Buffalo fans talking shit. Teams fighting, fan bases fighting with each other. Forget about the whole, Elon Musk and policy and all this shit. That's ugly enough. Just fucking Buffalo Twitter alone this week is just going to be it's just going to be nuts. It's Miami week, I guess. So it comes with the territory.
It's gonna be fun though. I did see Geary already put up a Tua apology form.
Yeah,
I'm like, dude, you spent every year of his career so far burying the guy. Like, it's a little late for apologies. I'm expected to, if he throws for a touchdown up there, to point up into the booth and just be like, wherever you are, Geary, that's for you, buddy. Like, thanks for killing me for every year that I've been in the league.
Yeah, I think he was trolling though, to be honest.
I certainly hope he was, because if he was walking it back, get lost, dude. And I say that with full love.
I wish I had the graphic to put up. he got me, or I got myself, I should say. Nate offered me, we're both in a media dynasty fantasy football league. And right before week 1 started, I needed a quarterback. He offered me, and this is before the first game, all right?
Okay.
He offered me Tua and Raheem Mostert for Ryder, the quarterback for Atlanta, Jalen Warren from Pittsburgh, and a first-round pick next year. Again, this is a media dynasty league, meaning it's a year-to-year league. It's not a one-and-done league every year, so draft picks matter a lot over the course of, your franchise. Anyway, I rejected it. Tua, likely right now through 3 weeks, is easily the MVP of the NFL. And I mean, it's not even close. And Raheem Mostert has been unbelievable. Scored 4 touchdowns yesterday. And I rejected that trade for a guy, Atlanta quarterback, who's going to be probably on the fucking bench within 2 to 3 weeks for Taylor Heineke. He's probably one more stinker away from not being the starter anymore and the backup running back for Pittsburgh and a first-round pick. But that's got to be one of the dumbest things I've ever done in my life. And I've done a lot of dumb shit. That is really, really high on the list of dumb, stupid ass shit that I've done before.
You know what,
Nate, I could have got Nate, and I didn't. Oh,
you know what though? It kept you from having to like pump your fist for Miami every week. Like that's that. It saved you the trouble of having to kind of be like, yeah, I know the Dolphins won and they're right in there with the Bills, but also, yeah, my team's killing it, so I'm good. Like, it's that classic fantasy sports cross up.
I know, but it was Nate Gary, dude. I could have had that shit over Nate. Nate would have made the dumbest trade in the history of trades, and I stopped him from doing it. So it makes me sick to my stomach. Also, anyway,
you could have won your matchup yesterday with those two by 1,000 points. So
just them two alone, man. Yeah, for sure. Anyway, we'll circle back to some Bills talk because again, it is a big week, and I want to spend at least a few minutes talking about the Washington game on Sunday as well. But before that, you've had some stuff going on, like I said, writing wise. Of course, you're the author, the creator of Noted Hockey. Tell fans right now you got a little series going on, A through Z. Kind of give fans a little bit of a glimpse into what you're doing with that.
Yeah, I was trying to expand my vocabulary while also digging into the Sabres, using a different word with each letter. Planning, and I'm still planning on doing this. I'm taking my time with the alphabet right now. Maybe should have given myself a little bit more time leeway as opposed to being like, oh, it's 26 days till the season starts. Let's start it that day. No, dummy. We'll give it like 2 months. But no, we're counting it down. Did like a full like roster preview, kind of picking out who I figured was a lock already. Heading into camp, the first day of camp, we started that one off. But yeah, we're hitting all the letters of the alphabet and trying to break down what we got going on with this Sabres team, because they're really interesting. There's a ton of talent. And the East is gonna, to borrow a JR term, man, the East is gonna be a slobber knocker this year for the NHL. The East is gonna be an all-out war, dude. It's gonna be stressful for fans, but it's going to be a lot of fun because there's so many teams that look really good right now on paper. And we'll see how things play out during the season and what shakes loose, but so many teams, man, where it's going to be tight, like we're going to see like Boston come back to the pack because, they lost their top 2 centers to retirement. And it's, they were a 130 point team last year. They could lose 25 points off their record, maybe still even win the division. Who knows? But they are, those points got to go back to somebody and they got to go somewhere. Right. So the thought is that it's going to sprinkle around the Eastern Conference and make the playoff races a little bit tighter. And it was pretty tight already last year. I mean, Pittsburgh and Buffalo finishing with 91 points, one back of, technically 1 point back of Florida for the last spot in the East. And yeah, so it's going to be fun, dude. It's going to be a good time. And yeah, there's so much going on with the Sabres team. It's a lot to keep up on, but yeah, subscribe over at Noted Hockey, $5 a month, $50 for a year, or any amount of money you want to throw down on it. I'll write a story for you, but if you go above 50 a year. But yeah, we're doing some fun stuff there, man. So much stuff going on, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, and that's for people who are listening, that's notedhockey.com. Go check it out. It's funny, is like, so over the summer, and it's just like this with every sport too, and during the off season, when you cover a team, you relax a little bit, and then you get into this time of year where it goes from not a lot to, you just start having to crank out content, and you do noted hockey. You do Bleacher Report stuff. You know, like you said, you do a lot of other assignments as well as they come into you. One of them is the actual Bleacher Report, and you just put out. I read it, in fact, earlier this afternoon. You ranked the top 10 best left wingers, and I'm gonna throw a spoiler out there for Sabres fans. Throw it out there. Jeff Skinner's on the list. I got to throw that out there. I won't tell you where. You know, go read the article. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. I've done a lot of drafts with you. That's what we were known for doing on this podcast, and it was so much fun. Which, by the way, I say this all the time. People ask me, to this day, probably the most interactive thing I've ever done with anybody on this podcast that I still get the most feedback from are the starting 5 drafts that we did for well over a year. Those were a lot of fun. But anyway, drafting and ranking shit is always fun. So doing stuff like that, I would imagine. And you said, even in your tweet, that it was hard to do, hard to pick out that top 10.
It really was.
But that's fun kind of shit to do, though, ain't it?
Oh, it's great. It's great to do these things. And, you know, I got to do that. I had a piece a couple weeks ago ranking out the ranking out every team's home jersey. You know, it doesn't always have to be like hard hitting, dig into the numbers kind of stuff that we're doing there. Sometimes it's light and fun, and we're doing things like that to kind of, you know, I'm waiting to get roasted by some team on social media for picking their team low or doing that or pocketing it and saving it for a later time to, you know, cold take me for something. But yeah, the left wings, man, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy, like going up and down the list of these guys and seeing all these names. And I'm looking and I'm like, is Alex Ovechkin really not going to be in my top 10? Like, that was a debate I had to have. I was like, is he really not a top 10 guy anymore? You know, guys like that, where you're looking at it, you're like, this dude might break Wayne Gretzky's record for most goals scored all time. And like, I'm just kind of, maybe not top 10 anymore. You know, like it's things like that, because there are just so many good players now. And there's so many good young guys coming up and just not stealing it, but they're forcing the issue on like the old guard of these guys, you know, like the Ovechkins, the Brad Marchands, like, you know, guys like that, where, you know, you could just rattle them off the top of your head and be like, oh yeah, no, that guy's, you know, elite, top, perfect, great player. Then you're like, well, how about these other 7, 8, 9, 10 guys? And you're like, oh God, how do I do this? And then, you know, even putting together the list of the, you know, the honorable mention guys, I'm just kind of like, well, I could put that guy number 9. I could put this guy 10. Well, maybe that guy goes 7. I don't know. It's crazy. There's just so many dudes that are so good at this league. And now that they've made it so that everybody can score, you know, like people score like crazy now. It's almost like how it used to be back in, like, go back to 06.
And I love it.
Lockout, everybody was scoring. It's kind of that way again now, man. It's a lot of fun. You know, anybody who says like, oh, I miss those old goaltending days, throw them in the river. Just dunk your head in the toilet.
Those are the people that are born at parties. Yeah, man.
Right.
I just, you are somebody who was doing this show with me back during the Ralph Kruger era still. So I think of Jeff Skinner. And if you would have told me at that time that in 2023, you know, you'd be putting out a Bleacher Report article with the top 10 left wingers in the league and Jeff Skinner would be on there, I'd be like, what?
Like, what happened?
What are you, nuts, man? Did you not watch these last block of games with Ralph Kruger? Come on, man. The guy's on the 4th line.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, you know, that's like a time machine moment I would love to have, like in the middle of like a 12 goal season with Ralph and everybody's miserable and just being like, yeah, don't worry, this guy's going to be a top 10 left winger again. And in 2 years, and people be like, where did they trade him? What team did they send him to? And how bad was the return on the deal? That's what everybody would have asked. They'd be like, no, he'll be here still. Don't worry. Everything will be fine.
I am legitimately, and I mean this, man, I am legitimately excited about this season as a fan. I mean, obviously for content, of course, especially doing a daily show now, there'll be so much more time to be able to talk Sabres, but just as a fan, and I don't try to pretend I'm not a Sabres fan. I'm a Sabres fan. I'm looking forward to it. I'm genuinely excited. I had Chris Baker on last week, and I'm going to ask you the same question before we dive into these camp questions. When it comes to this team right now and the expectations and the optimism that a lot of fans have, what's different about this team right now as opposed to a handful of years ago when it was Jack Eichel and Sam Reinhart, and they had a really nice, well, at least a couple really nice young stars? What's different about now? Like, why should fans buy into it now more now than they did maybe a couple of years ago when we know how that turned out?
I gotta say, I think it's the mutual buy-in from everybody. I think everybody's genuinely on the same page about everything. Back then you had, it was you had either coaches or management trying to create that balance between
Mhm.
well, these young guys, they got to learn, but we got to get these veterans in here to to help teach them, and we got to get the right coach to be to hold everybody accountable, all that, all the buzzword kind of
Mhm.
stuff. And it's not to say that Granato, Don Granato and Kevin Adams don't have like their own phrases and buzzwords and things like that. I mean, we've heard Kevin Adams say like, we want guys that want to be here, ever since he took over. Like that's a phrase that we've heard all the
I
time.
used to hate it.
It makes sense now, though. Like, doesn't it, in hindsight?
Yes.
Having guys that actually are like, yeah, no, let's do this, as opposed to kind of looking down the road and saying like, well, that next contract, man, it'd be sure nice to like get myself in a position, either soak these guys for it or just go somewhere
Right.
else and get it. But it's that buy-in you're getting from everybody, because these guys are all they're all on the same page. They all they're all about playoffs. They're all about playing together, doing helping each other out and being like good teammates to each other. It's such a night and day thing. And again, these things are made easier when you're able to win games, and this team's won more games than they have in the just just think about go back to like Kyle Opozo's first year. That's as far, you can go far back as that and just say like, okay, well, this team's now winning more games than they ever did like back then. And the difference is that just everybody's together on this. It's a young enough team that any of the guys that are there now, that are the impression makers, are like the guys you want to be the impression makers. It's Zemgus, it's Opozo. They're bringing Eric Johnson to be another one of those guys now, and you get guys that just bust their ass and play hard and do all the right things, on and off the ice. Those are the examples you want to be setting for everybody. And you've got enough young guys now that are just kind of just nice kids. They're nice kids. They have fun playing hockey. They're confident in their abilities. All the whole 9 yards. Everything. It's such a different thing from back then. And and like I said, everybody's got their buzzwords and catchphrases and whatever, but everybody's together on this. Like this is a pretty united front, and it's such a stark difference to what it was back then, because we didn't have any of that then, and now we do. And now we're staring at a team that's probably looking at making the playoffs finally for the first time in over a decade. And that's to go that far just in a few years is pretty impressive.
I am back here with Joe Yerdon from Noted Hockey. All right, man, I got some big to me anyway, Buffalo Sabres training camp questions that I think hopefully will be answered anyway. And one of them is that 13th forward. You kind of mentioned it earlier. Jack Quinn, of course, is out till at least Christmas. I want to run off 12 who I think, and maybe I'm wrong. I don't think I'm wrong, but I got 12 locks. And these are in alphabetical order, not by order of who's the better player. But got Cozens, Gergensons, Greenway, Jost, Krebs, Middlestat, Okposo, Olofsson, Peterka, Skinner, Tage, Tuck. I didn't realize that's 12 right there.
Yeah.
It's like, that's your 4 lines. I don't know what combination they're going to be yet, but those are very likely anyway, your top 12 forwards to at least start this season anyway. So I guess my question is, amongst Kulik and Rusek and Brett Murray, would those probably be the 3 biggest candidates to be that 13th forward to start the season? He might not dress right away, but you know how hockey goes, or all sports.
Right.
Things have a way of working themselves out. They want to give somebody a rest, somebody gets injured, and so that 13th forward is going to play sooner than later. It's not like he's going to sit in the press box for 81 games or 82 games. But anyway, that 13th forward, when you look at it right now, who are the most likely candidates, and who do you feel is that inside track right now?
Well, I think when you look at this, and I've been talking with Lance about this. We talked about it on maintenance day as well, a little bit. When you're looking at who you want to get in that spot, you don't want to have a guy that's going to be a kind of not one dimensional, but just can only be put into certain spots to be successful in the lineup, where you've got to, like, if you're designing it where, if you're doing it like a video game and you're like, okay, Jack Quinn's out, who do we put on the second line with Cozens and Peterka? Okay. And you're thinking, okay, well, it's got to be a scorer, which then, changes your focus to, you're thinking like, oh, okay, well, Kulik, maybe it's Roseanne, maybe, I don't know, like just pick one of these guys. I don't know, maybe Zach Benson's, you want to get crazy and put an 18-year-old on the team. You want to do something like that. I think if you narrowed your view on it like that, that's where your field of vision becomes. I don't think that's going to be the case because they've got enough guys in that middle part of the lineup that can do a few different things. Like think about Casey Middlestat for instance. We know him as a center. We saw him play wing last year and look pretty damn good at it too.
Yeah.
Same thing for Tyson Jost. Like usually a center, wasn't great at winning faceoffs, played some wing, did pretty well there. Okay. I think you want somebody who can be a little bit interchangeable, that can play some offensive hockey, but play strong enough defensively that you don't have to worry about them. You don't have to sweat them. So that way, if you're playing them, like I say, if you need somebody to be on like the other side of like Victor Olofsson, maybe you need somebody who's a little bit stronger defensively, just because it's not Victor's game. So like whatever.
Right.
I that to me points to a guy like Lucas Rusek, because he got a chance to play in a game last year, a game or two, where he gets to call up, and everybody was, the coaches loved him, GM loves him, everybody loves him because he just does his job, plays responsible defensively, but can score. Like he did pretty well with Rochester last year, scoring wise. Like he knows how to play the game on that side of the pocket and takes care of business. Like he's just, the perfect kind of guy that you want to put into a role where, hey, we need a little bit more defense tonight. Okay, well, Lucas is in there. He's got it. It's like, okay, we need to push the pace a little bit more, maybe get some more goals. Okay, well, Lucas can do that too.
Yeah.
That's where I think he's got kind of an edge on things right now. Kulik, love Kulik. He's still 19, like you can get him some more games at the AHL and be okay with that because he's 19. He had an insane season last year. Like
strong 19, Joe.
And he's a strong kid too. I mean, 24 goals regular season, had another 7 in the playoffs for the Amerks. Like it was just a dynamite season for an 18-year-old kid playing in the A. That's nuts stuff, man. Roseanne, I think Roseanne's going to be a guy that's going to get games this year. At some, injuries pending. If nobody gets hurt, nobody gets called up, like whatever. Kind of saw that a little bit last year, but Roseanne, I think Roseanne's got to add a little bit more weight, get a little bit stronger. I mean, he's up to like 173. I think they've got him listed at now, which is still like, that's fine. Like that's an okay size. I'd love to see him get closer to 180 and just be able to skate through anybody trying to take his head off. He was really good second half of the season last year. Like just, he took a beating in the AHL playoffs. Guys were looking to crush him all over the place, and guys took runs at him. They hit him, whatever, popped right back up, was scoring goals, did everything. He's a great skill player. Yeah. I think we're like guys like that. I think we're going to see it at different points this year, whether it's Kulik, it's Roseanne, another name here, Brandon Byro. Byro, we would have seen last year had he not gotten hurt at like the worst moments possible. He had same thing that happened to Sean Malone for a couple of years while he was in the organization. Like it's like, yeah, he's going to play this year. And then it was like, oh, they need a guy. Oh, Malone just got hurt 2 nights ago. Well, so much for that. Who's next? There's one other guy I'll throw into that, throw their name into the mix. Linus Weissbach. Now the offensive upside for him isn't quite as high, but he's fast. He can finish a little bit. But he's a tremendous penalty killer. Like he's a tremendous, like the speed and his know-how in defending as a forward is really good. And if the PK starts to stink out loud again this year, you might see them kind of be like, all right, Linus, get up there and see if you can help stir things up a little bit and lock things down a little bit more defensively. I think he'll still get a long look because he got a long look last year and he did a lot of those same things last year. And it was kind of hurt to see him go back to Rochester because you're like, oh man, this guy's really close. But I mean, he's on the older side, just the same way Rusek is. But the PK ability and that ability to defend might give him a little bit more of an edge. But I don't, listen, they score a ton of goals. So I think you can, if you lose Quinn, you're like, okay, well, somebody else will step up. Maybe we need to lock it down a little bit more defensively. But I don't know. The competition there is going to be really interesting. I know you mentioned Brett Murray, and I love Brett Murray. I just don't know if there's a way to work him in, just because the foot speed's a little lacking. He's a great room guy, great guy, period. Plays hard, scored a bunch last year, physical guy. I just don't know. I don't know, like, because they've already got Jordan Greenway. He does that stuff.
Yeah.
Zemgus plays heavy. Kyle Pozo plays heavy. I just don't know if you add another guy that plays that same kind of game.
A guy like Murray, his path to the roster might be like, as you kind of described, the type of player that he is. One of those guys go down and they still want that type of player. That might be his path to get it up. You mentioned Byro. That was a nice shootout goal he scored on Sunday in Washington. I actually watched it. I had it on my laptop. And by the way, we're dropping this on Tuesday, the audio, at least anyway, on Tuesday. I saw just before we started taping, the Sabres are playing a lot of their A-teamers against Boston tonight. I saw Dahlin's playing, Tage, Skinner, Levi starting in net, so that'll be cool. Quick bonus question, and we'll make this quick because we could probably do an hour just on this one topic if we really wanted to, because you were talking about it and just kind of went off my mind, but because there's a lot of rumors about this, so I need to ask you, any chance, is there any teeth to the rumors of Pat Kane coming to Buffalo? Do you think there's a realistic chance that he might be one of those 12 or 13 forwards?
I would say right now, no. Okay. And I say that just because, I mean, he can take all the time he wants to coming back. I mean, that hip surgery is pretty wicked.
Sure.
I mean, and it very clearly affected his game last year. He looked like a shell of himself. I mean, we're talking about a guy 2 years ago who was scoring 90 whatever points, and he was like, 33, 32 years old. Mm-hmm. Guy can still fill the net. Now, defensively, you're not asking him to come in and play defense. Let's be honest. You don't want him defending. Like, it's what it is. I think if he's still available, whether he's a free agent or, whatever, I think he can be extremely picky. He wants to win. He wants to be on a playoff team. He wants to win cups, like whatever. Okay. But if he's still available and we get into December, January, and Quinn, if Quinn has a setback or if there's another injury or, what have you, I'm not closing the door on the possibility. I think the door is very much there. We heard Kevin Adams talk a couple different times this summer about how when Kane was a rookie in Chicago, Adams was playing for the Blackhawks back then, and who did Pat Kane live with? Who did he room with? Kevin Adams.
Yeah.
So if anybody knows better, and Don Granato knows him from Chicago, so like those guys know who they're dealing with. They know obviously everybody knows the player. They know exactly what he is. It's more the person. And I know that that's always a hot topic.
Absolutely. But it's true.
Right. And it's true. I think you'd have to know what kind of headspace he's in right now. I mean, he's an older guy now, he's got a kid. I think he's married. He's got a kid. So like he's had to be an adult and he's grown up a bit. So he's a bit of a different guy in that respect. So, and I think for any team that signs him, he's not going to come into that situation and be like, all right, I'm the man, everybody bow to me. He doesn't strike me as that kind of, as that type of dude. Like, he's cocky, he's confident on the ice, but I don't think he's going to walk into a room and be the dominating personality. That doesn't make sense to me. And I know it sounds weird given, because he was Showtime in Chicago. I mean, he score a goal, it was just electric, but, I don't see him being in that sort of frame of mind. I don't even think he did that in New York either, because I think in New York he was content with being like quiet. It's lay low. Everybody else is leading the way here. Let me just hopefully hop on board for a Stanley Cup run here. But I'm not closing the door on it. I don't think he's the guy they sign at the end of camp or something like that. I just don't. I don't see that happening. I think if they wanted to do that, they would have done it already and gotten them worked in, or, at least get them introduced to everybody and get them in the room and all that stuff. I just have a hard time thinking that they're going to do that right now, but we get halfway through. And if there's injuries and if there's guys, I'm not ruling it out. I'm not saying it's not going to I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but I still think it's a long shot, but I'm not saying it won't happen. I'd be foolish to say it won't happen, because I don't know. I'm just wise enough to remember Adams talking about him enough to know that, like, maybe that's a phone number in his in his cell phone, like waiting to be called at some point.
Yeah, and you look, man, just like WWE, their famous saying is never say never, So, and I will say this too, Joe, a lot of shit is fueled by mindless fan site or just fan innuendo and rumors that
Yeah.
have no teeth to them whatsoever. This ain't something that was started on the Sabres Mafia group on Facebook or Twitter. This got legs because it was Darren Drager who reported last week that the Sabres, and that was the one team he mentioned specifically in his tweet that the Sabres have interest. He talked about him hip surgeries in Toronto rehabbing, going to be at least a couple months, but he mentioned the Sabres specifically. So that's why going back to having Chris on the show last week, we talked about this a little bit, and I put up a clip, and I've been doing clips for a while now. 80,000 people watched it, and a lot of people did not like it because there's a lot of Chad put up a poll. Chad DeDominis has put up a poll, and it was a nice sample size, like 4,000 or 5,000 people voted, and it was like 60,000 people voted no. So, I mean, it wasn't even close. So overwhelmingly, it seems to me that fans don't like it. I still say that Twitter is the loud minority in the big picture, but a lot of people don't agree with that. But anyway, we'll see what happens. I just want to throw that out there to you.
Yeah.
He's not going to be on this roster, whether the Sabres want him or not, or whether he wants to be here or not anytime soon, because he got a long way to go to get healthy again. Let's switch to the two big defensemen, Dahlin and Power. I think a fair question is to ask who they're starting the season playing with, who they're going to be paired with. Now, early on, it's been Dahlin and Clifton at practice, right? You've been in all the practices. Dahlin and Clifton. Power's been with Jokiharju. And then it's been Eric Johnson and Samuelson as another pair to it, right? Does that seem like those, the top two with Dahlin and Clifton and Power and Jokiharju? Are you a little bit surprised? Does that feel right to you right now? And based on very, very, very early projections, does it feel like those are good fits?
Yeah. I asked Don Granato on Monday about what kind of progression he wants to see from Power and Jokiharju, and he was very quick to say, like, well, I'm not evaluating anybody yet. Like these guys, they haven't been in a game yet. We're just, we're a few days into camp. I'm not doing any of that kind of, evaluation yet of like where things are. He's like, these guys aren't even, game, they're not ready for the regular season yet.
Sure.
That's completely fair. I'm only surprised by Power and Jokiharju being together just because I in my mind, the whole summer was about trying to find the guy that you want to put next to Power for the next, few years, because you had a lot of luck. You had a lot of good play from Dahlin with Samuelson, and, your third pair didn't see a lot of time, especially late in the year. You had Stillman and Lyubushkin being your third pair for a good chunk of the last season, and, or Bryson and Lyubushkin or whatever. And those guys were playing like, 8-9 minutes a night. And, the top two pairs were playing 25 minutes each or something. And you're like, maybe you don't want those two pairs playing 25 minutes every game for 82 games. So, Granato hinted at development camp that, doing the lefty righty split for all three pairs might be something to look into. And he's done that with this setup. I love the Dahlin Clifton pairing. I think that's going to be that's going to be such a pain in the ass for opponents. They're going to hate. Dahlin already drives everybody crazy anyways. Clifton makes guys look over their shoulder. So that's a different kind of, it's a bit chaotic, but it's a controlled chaos. Like it's gonna make a lot of teams mad. Let's put it that way, because Dahlin can score on you, and then he can also be kind of nasty. Like he's got a nasty streak about him now. And Clifton just goes 100 miles an hour all the time. Like he loves the hit. He loves making teams mad. He loves doing like all this kind of stuff. This dude will be a folk hero in Buffalo within the first 5 games of the season. I'm telling you right now, people are going to be running down to the shop to get the 75 jerseys and be like, really? Let's go, Clifton, let's do it. Because he's going to make everybody so mad, and he's going to make the boards rattle all season long. So fans are going to love him. Samuelson and Johnson together is one where I'm a little bit like, not sure about that one, but that's your top PK D pairing right there. Those two guys. And Johnson listen, Johnson's, I mean, he's been around a while. He's 35, 36 years old, whatever he is. Knows all the tricks, knows, how to handle everything. He's been a really solid defenseman for the last few years of his career now. So that's a duo that I like, because they're not going to have to play a ton of minutes. They're going to play, you're going to play them more minutes than you did your third pairing last year. That's for sure. But those guys are going to be the PK, the guys to really handle the PK business. So I think that's a good setup, and they're going to be specialized. Like, you need to lock down games or whatever. Those guys are going to be out there, specialized situations where you got to stop like a top offensive unit, at home or whatever. Throw those guys out there against them to get the puck out of the zone, or just prevent opportunities. I think they'll be fine. But I am a little surprised that Jokiharju is back with power, just because, it feels like we've seen what we need to see out of Jokiharju, but then I remember he's like 24 years old, 23 years old. He's still stupid young, 25, like 23, 24, 25, however old he is. He's still ridiculously young. And the little bits I've seen here and there in camp of just the way he handles some of the rushes and some of the situations that they create in practices, it feels like he's playing a lot smarter. And I know he's in a good headspace right now. So I'm eager to see how he handles some of these preseason games and the start of the season, because I think if he's able to control like where he is on the ice and let power drive things, carrying the puck and playing offensively, that pairing could be really good. That pairing could be really, really good, because Yoki, he started playing a lot smarter defensive hockey late in the season, and I think that could carry him a long way. I've learned to not write anybody off and like carry any preconceived notions about guys for any longer than like a few weeks, because guys can change, at a moment's notice. But I know after you see guys for a few years, you're just kind of like, all right, well, same old. But I don't know. There's little signals here and there that you see in these practices that maybe things will be different this time around. I mean, we'll circle back to me in a month and we'll see if I'm still saying the same thing.
Goaltending, obviously, it was probably the biggest reason. There's lots of reasons last year, but maybe if the goaltending was a little bit better, we would have been watching some Sabres playoff hockey anyway. It appears that Devon Levi is going to be the guy going in to the season as the number one goalie, especially after making no moves during the offseason to get a veteran. I guess my question is, how much of anything does he have to show over the next few weeks? Or is it just a question of all he's got to do is besides not getting hurt, obviously not fall on his face? Because that seems to me to be the only way that he doesn't start the season. I don't know, maybe as a true one, maybe a 1A or whatever you want to call it. But again, short of falling on his face, Devon Levi's the guy going into the season, right?
Yes. Yeah. I know. Breaking news on that one. He's the guy that they really believe in. It's easy to see why. Like, I mean, he's a wicked competitor. He's athletic. He's quick. He's all these different things. And we saw enough of that late last season. I mean, listen, you're not tapped to be the guy to try to get your team to the playoffs and play every game down the stretch when you're fighting to stay in it and fighting to get into it.
Right.
Like that alone tells me how much they believe in him, because if they didn't, he would have been splitting games the same way all the other three guys were, last season. And, that's even when you think about it, Luukkonen and Comrie having pretty solid outings before Levi showed up, and thinking like, oh, okay, well, maybe these guys are going to get hot at the right moment. And then Levi showed up and was like, no, my job. Thank you. Like it was that kind of way. So I mean, geez, if he falls completely flat in the preseason, he's still making the team, unless he looks like he's all out of sorts, and his mechanics are out of whack, and he would have to look like he had like he got conked on the head and had like a parent trap moment where somebody else was playing goal.
It'd have to be like catastrophically bad. He'd have to be to not make the roster, of course. All right, well, it kind of leads to another thing. If Comrie, they're not going to keep three goalies on the roster to start the year, that means Comrie has to go through waivers.
Yep.
Is he getting through waivers?
depending on the day that, if he does get sent through waivers, and I say that because we saw them carry 3 goalies last year. I don't think they'll do it this year.
Please don't. Please don't.
You never know, man. You never know. You just don't know. I don't know. I don't know. But if Comrie does have to go on waivers, depending on the day that you send him through, I think he can get through. But if he doesn't, they're cushioned for that blow. If not, because they went out and signed Devon Cooley, who played in the Predator system before this, played in Milwaukee, was very good for the Predators, or I should say the Admirals, Milwaukee Admirals, was very good for them. So they know what they're getting there. They brought back Dustin Tokarski, who was here a couple of years back, played a few games with the Sabres during, I think it was that Kruger-Granato season when Ralph was fired. I think it was that season anyways. So we've seen him before. We know what he's about. Like, perfect guy to kind of stash away in the AHL. And if you need a guy in a pinch, bring him up. And they brought back Michael Hauser as well, who, we've seen in the NHL before in previous seasons. Probably also saw him that same season Tokarski was up. But perfect guy to have within the organization. Like, he's just he's the ultimate good soldier goaltender. So I mean, he'll be in Rochester, he'll be in Jacksonville. If he's in Buffalo, things have gone
real
badly with injuries. So or oh boy, if things got bad with play enough that they're like, all right, Hauser, it's your turn. No offense to Michael Hauser, I love him to bits, but like, things have taken a bad turn if they're like, all right, Hauser, you're up, man, let's do this. But they're ready. They're ready to lose somebody. And they're not putting Luukkonen on waivers. You're just not putting a 24-year-old goalie on waivers. You're just not doing that, because all it takes is somebody else to snag him for free and then figure out what he was doing wrong, or give him the right opportunity, whatever, to get him back on the good foot. And then suddenly you've just handed a starting goalie to somebody else for nothing. That's the last thing they want to do. And they've stood by him this summer. Adams made it a point to say that, like, they believe in him and all this. You're not going to the mat for him like that unless you're keeping him around, and or unless you're really pumping his tires to trade him, which would be a real long con if you ask me. But I don't see that happening. It's going to be Levi and Luukkonen at the very least starting the season together. If they, for some reason, keep 3 goalies. And again, I just don't see it happening. I just don't. But if they do, I want to know how you work that otherwise, because then you're talking about sending either a defenseman on waivers, whether it's Bryson or Stillman, or having no forwards to back up your 12 forwards. And then you're looking at doing 11-7 stuff for, if there's an injury up front or something.
To carry a third.
They don't want to do that. Granato doesn't like doing 11-7. So it gets very awkward if they decide that they want to keep all 3 goalies around. I don't know. It's a very tricky spot to be in. Like, the answers seem easy for us that aren't GMs and aren't around the team, but I don't know. But if that's the option, and Granato didn't rule it out, he said, he's like, hey, we'll do what we have to do. I mean, it doesn't sound like a guy who wants to keep 3 goalies, but if that's what they have to do, then that's what they'll do.
They better not. They better not. I don't want to see 3 goalies, man. I don't care.
I don't think the goalies want to see 3 goalies either.
Comrie is who he is, man. He's not going to. I'm good with if it requires. I don't want to lose him. They get him to Rochester, great. If it requires losing them or only carrying, one less defenseman or one less forward, no. All right, a couple more things. I kind of want to weave back to the forwards here. Let's assume, and I know they haven't been skating on a line in their first couple practices, but Tage, Skinner, Tuck, if we're to assume that that's going to be their top line to start the season again, which is not a given, but
right,
I would assume so.
Yeah.
Quinn being out really sucks, man, because I love that second line of Cozens, Peterka, and Quinn. Let's just say they keep that top line, and let's say they're going to keep Cozens and Peterka at least together. Who's most likely to fill that Jack Quinn role to start the season?
I've been trying to figure that out, because they don't really have a right wing that makes sense. Like, there's not like an automatic, like, right winger, put him there. I'm really stuck on this one because there's different things they've been doing. Like, because I've seen a lot. Like Olofsson makes sense, like in the ether, but they've had Olofsson skating a ton with Jordan Greenway and Tyson Jost, which to me screams that's your third line. Which then I'm kind of like, all right, what do you do if that's your third line? Then that tells me Casey Middlestat maybe is your guy that goes with Cozens and Peterka, which maybe, or maybe Middlestat ends up centering Greenway and Olofsson, and then Jost is a guy to kind of be defensively responsible with Cozens and Peterka. It's really this is
tough.
I don't want to, when the roster gets cut down, I'm going to be really curious. I mean, and it's not going to clear up this picture at all because all these guys are sticking around late.
Sure.
Yeah. Nobody's getting cut with it, at the end of this week. Like that's just not happening. Anybody who's going to be in that race, but I do wonder that versatility with versatility. Yeah. Brain malfunctioning now, Pat. Sorry. the versatility of versatility. What was I even thinking saying that word? But I
That's
think
okay. I still call Tyson Jost. So
that's dude, we're doing okay here. I think Middlestat being able to play wing and center makes it interesting because you can, if you start Casey in the middle, you'd slide Cozens over to the wing and kind of let him like go, run renegade and become like a scoring monster over on the wing if he needs to, but he's really good at center, so you don't want to really mess around with that too much. But yeah, it's tricky, and we've some of the combos they've already used in camp. They're not telling us anything, like we've seen Thompson with Skinner and Zach Benson.
Yeah, I love Zach Benson, but not yet.
Dude, Lance and I talked about this. I'm like, if he wasn't 18 and just drafted a few months ago, he might be the guy that's making the team because he's looked that good to me. And like, I can't shoot it down completely because they'll keep whoever to make it work. But if they want to get a long look at him instead, because Savoy's hurt. So, okay. Like, I wouldn't be against it, but like,
you know what, Joe?
I don't know if he's playing that good, man. Like
you saying that reminds me of
wild card, man.
It reminds me of our conversations that we had maybe a year or so ago. If we would have said at the time, "Hey Joe, when's Devon Levi going to be the number one goalie for the Sabres? Let alone even be up and be playing meaningful games." I don't think you would have been saying as quick as it happened. Nobody would have. It just it happened quickly.
Yeah,
who's to say that sooner than later, Benson, far exceeds expectations, and he's up here a lot sooner than most people think.
It's just Savoy getting hurt just kind of screws up this entire conversation because if he's healthy, it's him. It's automatic. Savoy's automatically the guy. They'll get, you get your 9 games out of them and figure it out and then go from there. But I mean, Jesus, Benson had 98 points last year, man. Like as his draft year, the same team with Savoy. Like, I mean, he's really good. He's really good. I don't know if it's because they're still getting him integrated to how they do things just at this level of play, but they have there's so many guys where you're like, well, the smart route is just send him back to the dub and just, let him get his time in there. But I don't know, man. Like if a guy's playing well enough to get more looks, they're going to give him more looks. I mean, Benson's going to play, is playing against Boston tonight on Tuesday night. So it's 2 games in a row for him. So I don't know, maybe they're just getting as many looks with him as possible before they send him back, or maybe they just want to kind of see where he goes see how he handles a home crowd, maybe, like different things. But dude, there's so many things with him. I hope he sticks around because there's like an analysis thing I want to write about him. But boy, oh boy, if you asked me if I thought I was going to be planning a trip to Wenatchee, Washington, for maybe some point later this year to maybe go see these guys play, I would say you're crazy. But now I'm kind of like, I don't know, man, maybe I need to go.
It's what excites me, again, going all the way back to being excited about this season as a fan. We're talking about guys. Well, Quinn's hurt. Otherwise, Quinn's your answer. Quinn's that top 6 guy. No questions asked. But he's not going to be on the opening day roster because of his injury.
Right.
But then you got Kulik and you got Savoy, who you just mentioned, and you got Benson, and you got Rosine. None of these dudes are going to probably not. None of these guys are going to be on this opening night roster. But
Mm-hmm.
these are guys that are going to be in the mix soon enough.
Yeah.
It's just, man.
Dude, next year's training camp, I'm not wishing away this year at all. Like, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, don't do that.
But you're talking like, I mean, if Savoy has to go back to WHL, which I think is probably end up happening, there's some weird things going on there.
Yeah,
but,
yep.
But I mean, you're talking about a camp next year where Benson and Savoy both could actually like make the team right out, and you're like, well, who are you subtracting from the lineup to do that? Like, it's nice to be kind of built up, it's nice to have these things. Although I know everybody just screamed Olofsson at their phone saying like, well, he'll be gone. So there's a spot. But I mean, this is exactly what this organization's been needing to set up for years. And now they have it set up where it's just keep making smart picks, keep picking the right guys each year. And then suddenly now you don't have a backlog. You just have a farm full of dudes where you're like, oh, okay, now we've got some players and we got a bunch of dudes that could be here within the next 1, 2, 3 years easy if the path stays the way it is. It's crazy.
We're going to talk a couple minutes of football here. To wrap up what we were talking about with the Sabres too, all this offensive stuff and it's exciting. But what I really love the most is you can have all the offense in the world, but now it feels like they have a goaltender who would actually stop the puck. You can talk about offense, but if your goalie can't stop shit, it ain't going to matter. But, lost among all the hype here is the Sabres got potentially one hell of a goalie in Devon Levi, and I love that a lot. But I want to talk football at least for a couple of minutes. I'm going to assume, Joe, and maybe I'm wrong, but I'm going to assume that you didn't watch the Bills game because of the Sabres game was on, or maybe you tried to watch both.
I was at Anchor Bar on Maple with friends watching with the Bill. Obviously, the Bills game was on there.
Sure, yeah.
There was even like a Bills alumni group that was there doing. I guess they do like a weekly thing there with a handful of guys. So that's kind of a cool thing. But no, I had the Sabres game on my phone streaming because I thought it was going to be like on MSG, and I was looking for it like on the streaming app. Like the streaming app was like, no, there's nothing. Right. Forget it. So yeah, no, I had my eyes on it, but it was like that scoreboard video. So like every time a Caps guy scored, you're getting Caps goal.
Yeah. I was watching on my laptop, but yeah. Anyway, I don't want to dissect the Bills game. Kind of old news at this point. Plus, again, we're already on to Miami for the most part, but a couple big takeaways. First of all, the defense. I mean, Jesus Christ, they gave the play, man. 9 sacks, 4 interceptions, 5 turnovers. They hit Sam Howell 15 times. Guess how many times Josh Allen got hit, by the way? 0.
I was going to say 0.
He did not get sacked, and he did not get charged with a quarterback hit, which is another takeaway. The Buffalo Bills offensive line has been really good the last couple of weeks. Terrell Bernard silencing a lot of haters, at least for now out there, none so more than me. Because I was really rough on him. I made fun of him. I thought it was ridiculous that a guy, he didn't win the starting middle linebacker job. Tyrell Dodson lost it. I'm going to say that shit over and over and over because that's how I think camp went. And then they signed Christian Kirksey. I'm like, well, there's a veteran. Bernard will be out by week 3. Christian Kirksey will be the starter. Dude, Terrell Bernard's been fucking fantastic. I mean, to the point where I'm not saying he's better than Tremaine Edmonds. That's going a little too far at this time. But they're different types of players. And what Terrell Bernard does that Tremaine didn't do is make impactful splash plays that matter. And he's already got 2 picks, and he's already got 2 interceptions, and he's played 3 games. I looked it up. Tremaine Edmonds in 5 years with the Bills never had more than 2-2 over the course of a season. Terrell Bernard had that shit in 9.5 quarters. So anyway, he's around the football, and he's making plays, which is exactly what Matt Milano does. I get it now. I get it. I didn't get it at the time. I get what Sean McDermott was thinking, like matchup linebackers. He's small. He's going to get beat some. Some teams are going to pound him. But they're like, you want to run the ball on the inside all night? Go ahead. That's a W for us. Anyway, like when you're playing the Chiefs, you're playing the Bengals, you just want to keep running the ball, go ahead. Miami, for an example. Anyway, Terrell Bernard just pleasantly surprised. Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones, they've been great. Like I said, the offense has been effective the last 2 weeks. I like what I saw from Josh the last 2 weeks. Like 2 weeks ago was a little too much, almost robotic, like check down, but it was really effective against the Raiders. This week, he opened it up a little bit more, kind of flirted with danger, but that's what you're going to get with Josh Allen. Anyway, again, going back to what I said at the beginning, where Miami's on fire, but the Bills are a good football team too.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really, this might be, I don't want to say it's the game of the year. It's the game of the year so far. Well, it's the game of the year so far, though.
Yeah.
These are two great football teams. Sunday, 1 p.m. This is probably the game of the year to this point, man. This is going to be a meaningful game. So it's fun to watch, and there's plenty at stake too.
You trying to tell me Denver, Chicago won't be the game of the year?
Oh my God. You had fun watching. You could not pay me to watch that. Those teams are fucking trash. I've watched both of them. Denver just gave up against Miami. But anyway, dude, Miami's great. I mean, that offense is lethal. Lethal.
They didn't even have Waddle play.
No.
Did they? He didn't even play? Jesus.
Nope. He didn't even play. They still dropped 70, man. They still dropped 70. But
I love people saying like they were running it up on Denver. I'm like, sorry, dude, it's the NFL. Stop them. Stop them. Like, just do anything. I'm watching Surtain, just like seeing guys run by him. I'm like, yeah, I'd be the same way. I'd be like, play this idiot defense and playing like this ass. But no, this is an actual real game for them. Like the Jets game was a throwaway nonsense bullshit. Like whatever. I just. Week one, I almost want to tear up for everybody because it's such you barely played anybody in the preseason. Like, I just mean like minutes wise, series wise, you've hardly played any of these guys. So week one is a glorified preseason game, if you ask me. I mean, it's real stakes, all that. I get blah, 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 whatever. You're still figuring out like who's going, who's not going in that game. So like, wow, whatever. Like Jets get lucky, fine, whatever. They played like crap. They stopped playing at whatever. Fine. Oakland, Jesus Christ.
So I call them Los Angeles.
Dude,
earlier.
You're lucky if they don't say Marcus Allen didn't look good for him this past 2 weeks ago. But Raiders are a clown team. Like, okay, you got it figured out. Good. Washington, fake ass 2-0, took care of business, made them look stupid, made them look like the bad team they are. Perfect. Now you're getting the real test. Like you got three more games to kind of work out the kinks and get up to speed. I think the Bills are up to speed now, and Miami's up to speed too. And if they're not up to speed, it could get
blown out if they're not.
Get nasty. But it's gonna be fun as hell, man. I am so happy that this opportunity to write about the game fell in my lap. I was like, cool, I get to go to the game now.
Yeah, once it would have been Denver or some shit like that. I mean, you would have did it anyway. Work is work,
oh, sure.
It's a gig, but you'd be like, ugh. But
Miami,
man,
Buffalo.
Yeah,
cool.
It's
glad they can't flex the game to 8 p.m. because I probably would have been like, yeah, you know what? I'd just rather sit at home.
What is it? It's like the Jets and the Raiders maybe that are playing Sunday. It's the Jets and somebody. The Jets and someone are playing Sunday night. I don't want fuck that, man. I told you I want 17 games at 1 p.m. on Sunday. If I had my way, that's the way it would be. Yeah, man. There's a lot to look forward to, and obviously on this show I'll get into it a lot more during the week, but. Let's end with a little bit of Detroit Lions talk. Now, I'm not a Lions fan like you.
Right.
I'm a little bit more than just a Lions watcher. Let's call me a Lions aspiring admirer. I'm high on this team, and I told you that at the end of last year, and I told you that when we talk, and even if it's not on the show, we talk all the time, and on Twitter and shit like that, and privately. But I told you I'm pretty high on this football team, and they went out opening week and proved it. They beat Kansas City. And then, they played bad. And who did they lose to in week 2? Oh, God, it's driving me nuts, man. Yeah, Seattle, right. Then they bounced back and they beat Atlanta this week. But Sam Laporta, I looked up to 8 catches, 84 yards, and a touchdown. This is what I love about Detroit the most. So Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs, who was the 2nd overall pick by me in my media dynasty draft this season. I'm a big Jahmyr Gibbs guy.
Wow. Okay.
He's got Alvin Kamara vibes, hopefully on the field, Alvin Kamara, not off of it, vibes for me, but he's that type of player. I like him a lot. Jack Campbell, who had his first sack on Sunday, a guy that Buffalo Bills fans know very well because there was a lot of talk about Jack Campbell potentially being the Bills' next middle linebacker. And then Brian Branch, 11 tackles on Sunday, 3 for a loss. He was a beast. He was another guy that was connected to the Bills during the draft process.
Had that pick 6 against KC.
Yep. So I just rattled off 4 guys that are all fucking rookies. This is this year's draft class for the Detroit Lions. And don't even get me started about Hutchinson and Jameson Williams will be back soon from last year's draft class. What a great, fun, young football team this is, led by a very animated, and whether you love him or hate him if you're a Detroit fan, a very fun to watch coach in Dan Campbell. That fake punt in week 1 from their own 20, I was like, that is some ballsy on the road against the Super Bowl champs. I'm like, that is some fucking ballsy ass shit right there, man. That, again, I already liked them. That made me like them even more. But anyway, I know how you are, just like I would be the same way with the Sabres. I know you well enough to know, don't talk good about my team.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to find a way to lose, and shit, just whatever could go wrong goes wrong. That's the mindset of a fan who's waited forever for their team to do something.
Seen it all.
You've seen it all. Just like for 17 years with the Bills. It's like here every single game, every time one thing happened, here it comes. More times than not, it did come too. But anyway, I look at that NFC North. Chicago's done. They're
awful.
They're dead. They're dead. Minnesota's on, they're 0-3 and they're on life support. They were fraudulent last year and they're just not good this year. Simple as that. There's a 2-horse race in this division between Green Bay and Detroit. Green Bay to me is pleasantly better.
Green Bay's real.
I think their defense is real. I think they have a good defense. I think they can run the ball with Dylan and Jones. And I think Jordan Love's pretty good. He's not, is he Tua? No. But you know who he's also not, he's better than like Baker Mayfield, or he's better than a lot of these bums around the league. I don't think Jordan Love's a bum. I think they got some decent skill position players. I don't know if Green Bay, I like Detroit. That's my point. I think Detroit's going to win the division, but I think Green Bay's there. It's a 2-horse race right now in this division. So as a Lions fan, I got to assume you're feeling pretty good.
No, I'm never feeling good. I think that's true. I think that's the important part.
That is true.
Literally never feeling good about them. I just look at, I don't know, like you said, Green Bay, like, okay, the Saints lost Derek Carr, like what, a quarter and a half into that game. I think it was, he got hurt. Like, okay. And then they didn't do anything for the entire second half. Like, all right, cool. I mean, I can't buy that it's a 2-horse race with the friggin' Packers, because the Packers are not good.
Well, so you're saying Detroit is over then?
No, because they are very good at stepping on rakes and hitting themselves in the face, like, ad nauseum. Like Jordan Love throwing, like, he finished with 259 for 3/4 of that game. That dude couldn't complete any pass. Like, he was like 8 for 18 for like 89 yards, and then the Saints decided to go home. Like, they just decided, like, well, whatever, who cares? This is over whether we win it or not. Just an embarrassing effort out of that terrible squad. Like, whatever, they can go chew on 1 or 2, but I mean, the thing is, like, Detroit's played well, but that Seattle game bothers the absolute garbage out of me, because that's the team that cost you the playoffs the year before. And it was your home opener, and everybody's juiced up after the Kansas City game. And then you come out and, like, step on your dick for 60 plus minutes, because you came back after you gave up a pick. Goff throws his first interception in, a year and a half, and it's a pick 6 that puts Seattle up by like what, 10 or 13 or something like that. Like, just ridiculous. I was like, yep, that's that was the moment I was like, yep, that's so Lions. There we go. Goff's first pick in forever. And it's a pick 6 to end the game. And then they come back and tie it and lose in overtime with, giving up like a 20-yard run or some shit like that. Like, just idiots. Like, you're at home, guys. Win by 30 against this team. But they're playing Green Bay this week. So it's like, of course, the Jordan Love hype machine just got fired up now.
Green Bay.
Now it's fucking annoying. So
it's a big game.
It is. Well, it is. You have to beat them. Like, you're tied with them. You're both 2-1.
I think they're far and away Detroit's biggest competition in that division. Far and away, I think they are. I think Minnesota's dead. I think
all that tells me is that's a bad division. That's all that it tells me, is that's a bad division.
I was looking at Detroit's schedule near the end of the year, and over their last 5 games, so let's just assume they're close with Green Bay, or if they're out in front, they play at Dallas, which is, of course, going to be a tough game. But besides that, over their last 5, they play at Chicago, which is going to be Caleb Williams hunting at that point.
Yeah.
They are. Them in Denver and Arizona. That's a 3-headed race. I can guarantee you that right now. So that's going to be one. So they're playing Denver at home in Detroit. And we all saw what Denver is. Again, they're another team. I think they're ready to move on from Russ Wilson and pretty much tear it up and start over. And then they play a team that in Minnesota, I just think Minnesota's toast. And they'll be looking to the future. And they don't play them once, they play them twice. So they got 2 against Minnesota, Denver, and Chicago over their last 5, alongside the road game in Dallas. So Detroit's going to be in the mix. If they got like that 8 wins, 7, 8 wins going in those last 5 games, they're getting to 11. Absolutely getting no less than 11. That dude, I like them, man. I really like this team. Jared Goff's just got to be okay. And Jameson Williams coming back in 2 weeks. I love that dude as a player anyway. He's a great player, man. He's going to make that offense better.
That's going to make their offense a lot more interesting, because you're going to see a lot of like the jet sweep stuff coming out with him, and like the kind of the goofy gadget plays that Detroit's got sprinkled all through their playbook. I mean, hell, the Seattle game, they busted out the old Tecmo Super Bowl flea flicker that somehow worked, which I don't understand how that even worked, because the dude just wide open going down the field. But I mean, like, they do goofy shit like that. Like, they just have like dumb plays like that all through the playbook. And it's just every now and again, Campbell's like, yeah, let's give him the old razzle dazzle. Let's do this dumb thing. And then it works and they get, 30 yards out of it or something like that. But, and I say that with love. That's not me being critical. I'm just kind of like, yeah, do cool shit. That's what the Lions need to be to me. Be the team that does cool shit and wins games. Just the the winning games part has been hard to do, but yeah, things are set up right for them. Well, let's put it that way. Like Green Bay's fake as hell, and I hate them. I said this to you over the summer. Everybody's like, "Oh, Love's gonna stink," and blah blah blah. And I was like, dude, I watched Aaron Rodgers sit behind Favre for 800 years, and then everybody's like, well, he can't be that good, right? And then immediately wins an MVP or whatever. And then the Lions are the team that made Brett Favre history become a thing, because of the goddamn playoffs and letting him throw complete passes to Sterling Sharp for his entire career. And then the playoff game where they just let Favre have a comeback at the Silver Dome. And yeah, it's just, I've seen it too much, man. Like, there's too much scarred history where it should be scabbed over, but it's constant open wounds. Nothing ever heals.
I think you're looking at it skewed because of the history of your team and the disappointments. Let me end this podcast. I'm going to get. It's fair. Trust me. You're talking to a guy who's followed Buffalo sports his whole life. If anyone knows failures, it's the Buffalo sports fans. Trust me. At least Sabres and Bills. Anyway, right. I'm going to end this with a prediction, a hot take, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. So the Detroit Lions have not made the playoffs since 2016. And they've won 1 playoff game in the last 65 years. I looked this shit up before I had you on. They're going to win their division, and they're going to win at least 1 playoff game. So that drought of only 1 playoff win in 65 years, my prediction is that's coming to an end this year. They're going to win at least 1 playoff game this year. They're not beating Frisco or Philly, though. But they're going to win at least 1 playoff game. That's my prediction. The Detroit Lions are going to be in the playoffs, and they're going to win at least 1 playoff game.
See, I mean, you put it in that frame of mind where it's like they've only won 1 playoff game in 65 years. Correct. But the last time they won a playoff game was 32 years ago. That's the part that gets lost in this, where it's like, oh yeah, well, cool. When was that game? It was like, well,
yeah, I'm making it sound like it could have been 7 years ago.
Right. Right. It was January 5th, 92. So I was not yet 13 years old. That was a month before I turned 13. I was 12 friggin' years old when they won.
Well, you're going to be an adult.
Game.
You're going to be an adult, and you're going to celebrate a playoff victory this January. That's my prediction for you, man.
The sad part is if that were to happen, that would make the rest of the playoffs gravy. But of course, they would lose in some disgusting, awful fashion where I'd just be like, this fucking team, god damn it. I couldn't even be something where I couldn't even enjoy them doing that. Like, if they got their pants beat off by somebody who was good, then I'd be like, all right, well, whatever. They lost to Washington that year when they beat Dallas. They lost to Washington in the NFC title game that year. that Washington team was out of control, which, I mean, unfortunately, Bills fans knew was an out of control good team. They got to see them in the Super Bowl that year. But, like, I mean, Jesus, you couldn't stop Ricky Sanders for anything. You couldn't stop anybody for anything on that Washington team. They were just too damn good. But, like, but at least they beat the Cowboys. They beat the pants off the Cowboys 38-6, man. It was awesome.
I said, Joe, and down a little rabbit hole there at the end. Make sure you give him a follow at Joe Yerdon on Twitter. And of course, check out notedhockey.com. Again, just $5 a month, man. Can't go wrong. Great coverage. Joe's also very interactive on Twitter. Like if you tweet at him, he'll get back to you. Unless you say some stupid shit, then he probably won't.
Yeah, I probably won't interact with you then.
It was good. It was great. It was great to have you on again. Seriously, man. And now that hockey season's back, obviously not every week. Plus, by the way, I should have plugged. I forgot about this. Maintenance Day too. Joe Yerdon, Lance Lazowski, you do so much shit now, I forget about some of it. They have a podcast, Maintenance Day, a straight hockey Sabres podcast that's dropped pretty much weekly. So make sure you go check that out. Those guys really deep dive and get into stuff more. Whereas when it's you and I got to throw some topics, you give me some takes, but we're bouncing around all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
Good hockey podcast, Maintenance Day. So actually go check that out. And again, with the season starting, when you get time, we'll hook up again every now and then. Hopefully more often than every 2 months. But
yeah,
it was great to have you on, buddy. I appreciate you, man.
Always a good time to be with you, Pat. It's been a while, but it was a good time.